All right, let's start our mini lessons for sprint planning of scope management in adaptive projects. Guys, when it comes to planning for adaptive projects, two terms you need to remember. Number one is adaptive planning. What does adaptive planning mean? It means just enough planning. So guys, in adaptive planning, the team plan just enough for the current sprint and adopt future work based on feedback, priorities, and changing needs. Okay, so what is sprint planning? You need to just assume that our sprint is just started and we are in early hours of that 2 week. Okay, we are in day one, early hours. We do sprint planning. We do sprint planning with adaptive planning in mind. It means we just plan for the next 2 weeks, not more than that. Okay, this is called adaptive planning. Just enough planning or adaptive planning. Why this is called adaptive, guys? We do the planning for next 2 weeks. Now we have a ceremony in the last day of sprint, which is called a sprint review, that we show whatever we have built to stakeholders. I'm not gonna dig into that right now, but the term adaptive comes from this mindset that when we show our product, whatever we have built in this sprint to stakeholders, we get some feedback. Now, based on that feedback, we adapt the planning for the next sprint. That's why it is called adaptive. Okay. Now, the next sprint's planning is based on feedback from the first sprint. So this is called adaptive. We adapt and change the plans. Please feel free to read the example. The next term that you need to remember when it comes to planning for adaptive projects is capacity planning. Guys, our development team has a certain capacity. By capacity, I mean they can finish up or build or develop certain user stories, certain number of story points. Okay, each team has a certain velocity. Okay, velocity is number of completed story points per sprint. Guys, how do we come up with team's velocity? First of all, there are two scenarios. If the team is pretty new and there is no history, okay, it takes 4 or 5 sprints, 4 or 5 2-week period to find the capacity of the team, to find the velocity of the team, to find out, okay, how many story points the team could finish in each sprint. Okay, it takes 4 or 5 sprints. But if the team has a history, the team has worked with each other before, okay, we could review the performance. We know the skill level. We know, okay, their availability. And now we have some data. We could assume that the capacity or the velocity of this team is 20 story points per sprint. Now we pool work based on this capacity. So capacity planning means pooling user stories, pooling story points based on capacity of the team. Okay, and guys, remember, capacity of team is not constant over the lifetime of the life cycle of the project. No, maybe one team member leaves like sick for a sprint. We wouldn't have that team member for a sprint. Now, if the capacity was 20 sprints, 20 story points per sprint, now one team member is not available, so the capacity of the team decreases. We need to plan for that sprint based on the current capacity. Okay, so capacity is based on availability, based on skills and past performance, guys. Please feel free to read the example. And the next concept is DOR. We had DOR. Guys, in this stage, okay, before the team go and executes those user stories, we do planning, sprint planning. Now, in a sprint planning, team members need to make sure those user stories that want to be pulled out has met DOR, definition of ready. All columns of that user story in the product backlog is completed. For example, we know the acceptance criteria of that user story. We know, for example, priority. We know story points. Every detail for that user story is completed. So DOR is another concept that we need to pay attention in this stage of the project. Awesome. Now, let's have a mini question. let's have the first mini question of this part of the tutorial, and we will continue with another 3 cool concepts that you're gonna need to know in this stage. Let's get it done, guys. All right, let's get this mini question done. You are a project manager supporting an agile team that finished the last iteration with several incomplete user stories. The team explains they underestimated support work, a few members were partially unavailable, and several items were larger than expected. Leadership now pressures the team to pull more work next sprint, and the product owner suggests loading extra stories to meet stakeholders' expectations. The team is hesitant but unsure how to push back. What should the team have done to avoid this outcome? A. Pulled more stories early in the sprint to build momentum and avoid last-minute pressure. B. Calculated through capacity upfront, including availability changes and expected support work before selecting user stories. C. Pre-assigned work to each team member so workload was evenly distributed across all roles. D. Increase the sprint length to give the team more room to complete work despite emerging uncertainties. Incredible question. I'm proud of myself with this question, guys. You will definitely get a question like this on your PMP exam. What's the problem, guys? First of all, feel free to pause the video and try to come up with the right option. And then when you unpause it, we're gonna get it done together. What's the problem, guys? So the team has done a sprint, but that sprint didn't go well, okay? There were some unfinished user stories. So the team pulled, in the sprint planning, the team pulled more user stories than they could do. So what concept or what concern or challenge the question is signaling, guys? Bad sprint planning. We had a bad sprint planning. Where is the Scrum Master here? Here is the Scrum Master's job. This question suggests that we don't have even a Scrum Master. Where were you? You are the project manager. Where were you? It is your fault. You should have an incredible sprint planning. Guys, remember, sprint planning, so far we learned that we need to do adaptive planning, so no more than 2-week planning. We need to do capacity planning. We need to pool work. You need to make sure development team pool work based on their capacity. Okay, they knew that some of the team members will be unavailable, but they pulled work more than they could do, and they pull some works that does not meet the DOR. See, look at line. Where is it? A few members partially, and line 3 and 4. Several items were larger than expected. By you, I mean development team. Development team need to pull work into sprint that are clear enough, that has broken down into user stories. Maybe development team has pulled some epics or features, not user stories. So that user story should meet DOR. So we had a terrible sprint planning, guys. And the question suggests, last line, what should the team have done? The team should have had a great sprint planning, should have pulled the work based on their capacity, should have considered unavailability of the team members. So which option suggests that? Let's go through the options. Option A, pulled more stories. The current pulled stories are more than their capacity, and option A suggests they should have pulled more stories. Are we stupid? We're not. We're brilliant professional project managers. So option A is nonsense, guys. Option B suggests calculated true capacity upfront. This is good so far. Including availability changes and expected support work before selecting user stories. Good so far. I like it so far, guys. It says, hey, you should have considered capacity planning. You should have known the team should have known their capacity, considering, for example, unavailability of team members, and then pull the user stories from sprint backlog, from product backlog based on their capacity. And if they have done this, they have met and delivered all of those user stories. I like it so far. I won't eliminate it by right now here. Option C, pre-assigned work to each team member. Guys, remember, in adaptive projects, our teams are cross-functional and self-organizing. Cross-functional means we have all the skills to deliver the value. Self-organizing means team takes care of team development. Team chooses, like each team member chooses, okay, what will they work on? We don't assign tasks to team members. This contradicts agile mindset, guys. Okay, option C suggests a predictive way of handling the situation. No, we don't do that. It violates agile principles. Option D, increase the sprint length. Guys, we never increase the sprint length. In a question, when you see this option like this, like increasing the sprint length from 2 weeks to 3 weeks, eliminate that option. Yeah, I know adaptive projects are more flexible, but in that flexibility, we still have some structure. And sprint length, constant sprint length is a foundation of that structure, guys. Okay? We never, ever increase the length of a sprint. So remember this. So option B is the best option so far. Okay, let's read the description. Capacity planning requires the team to adjust real availability, support work, holidays, and unplanned events before committing. Ensures the team pulls only what they can complete, maintaining sustainable pace. Very, very important term that we had it in many terms. I hope you have reviewed it. Sustainable pace. It means the team, okay, on average has same velocity. For example, the team completes 22 story points per sprint. The pace of the team, the velocity of the team is almost same in all sprints. Now, if one member is unavailable, that velocity will drop, obviously. That capacity will decrease. But the pace of the team, if everything is on schedule and everything is good, there's no challenges around the team, the pace of the team is sustainable, constant almost, okay? And the rest of the description, I think we talked why other options are incorrect. Now, let's continue mini lessons with another 3 important topics that you're gonna know in this stage of scope management in adaptive projects. Let's get it done, guys.